So, I guess about a year ago, I went to a meeting where I heard this guy from West Texas was going to be speaking, and I thought, cool, I'm from West Texas. I was born and raised in Odessa, and he happened to be from Midland. I just never knew all the money was in Midland, and all of us workers were in Odessa at the time that I grew up. But anyway, so I heard this guy telling his story, and I was like, golly, this is a great story. It would be, but I had a sense in the setting that he was in, it was kind of like there was a bridle or a muzzle that kept him from really take the sugar coat away and just be the raw and the real. And so, again, through the Wild Game Dinner connection, I made a connection to our speaker tonight, Tim Thompson. And so I'm proud to introduce another West Texan who has an amazing story of journeys. And as you read on the bio, you know, he served under President W. Bush as the advance team. Can you imagine what an advance team has to do? All the detail for a sitting president of the United States, what is required? Well, he'll fill us in on some of that, but the list is infinite, I'm sure. He's a lover of golf. He worked in production with CBS, ESPN, Fox, and others, and I would be here too much longer reading the rest of his list. But Tim has varied experiences, and so we got to get together, and I asked him if he would come and just share his story this evening. So I'm honored to introduce to you Tim Thompson, but part of the evening is going to be, we're going to be doing some video, lights are going to be out, and you know, I've told Tim and other guys that speak that, you know, hey, look, just set everything aside and pretend that we're just a group of guys sitting around a campfire, having a cold beer, and hearing another man's story. So in place of a campfire, I was in charge of bringing a spotlight tonight so that while the lights are out, the spot would be on Tim, and lo and behold, that fell through the cracks. And so some generous men over here went to their toolboxes and got us a redneck campfire spotlight. I got three construction flashlights that I'm going to have on so you can see Tim while the video is showing up here. So with that, Tim Thompson with a cold St. Arnold's. Let me welcome you, bro.
I figure if I'm going to sit around, please be seated. Thank you. I'll be here all night. Listen, if you're going to sit around the campfire, you better have I figure you might as well have cold beer. So thank you very much for your indulgence tonight. Thanks for the invitation, Steve, and for everybody who cooked. I am going to spend a few minutes talking a little bit about some of my experiences traveling with and political things and some golf things and some travels and those sorts of things. I think you'll enjoy the videos that I've kind of put together. Forgive me because they're not professionally done, but I did my best. So and this is the first time I've done it, so you're the first people to ever see it. And I don't even know if my family has even seen some of these videos. I had forgotten about them, but I did grow up in West Texas, and the money may have been in Midland, but my dad worked in Odessa. So, I went to Midland High and graduated, went to the University of Oklahoma. Got a couple of Sooners here. And I guess during my childhood, it was pretty normal. I've got a younger brother. Mom and dad were together. Dad made the money, and mom raised us. And so there wasn't any too drastic kind of differing family experience that I can say up until I got older, actually. But after going to OU during my freshman year, I just finished, and I was on the golf course in Midland, and I was told that then Vice President Bush, Father Bush, was coming to Midland, which is where they grew up, and where George W. grew up. And I say where he grew up. I mean, he's obviously from Connecticut, but he spent a whole lot of time getting in the oil business out in Midland back in the 50s. Excuse me. So I was on the golf course and they said, hey, Vice President Bush is coming to town, they need some help. I'd never been involved in politics. My parents weren't involved in politics. I wasn't interested in politics. And they said, well, I'll help. So I'm 19 and I get to go and get to sit in all these meetings with Secret Service agents and the White House Communications Agency and like the mayor and all of these big wigs of Midland, Odessa. Mostly Midland, actually. But so I was wide-eyed, and they I don't know if y'all know it. You've seen a motorcade on TV. Most of the cars in a motorcade are driven by volunteers, actually. And so at age 19, I got to go drive a motorcade car, and I didn't know anything about it. Well, I was hooked. So he came into town and did an event. He was campaigning in '84 for the Reagan-Bush ticket, which they won. And so it was very shortly thereafter that everybody thought that Vice President Bush would start campaigning for president. And I went back to OU. And how many of you took summer school in college, or maybe even in high school? So a lot of you. So I was in summer school at Midland College taking physics. I went up to school to be an engineering major. Well, I missed 3 days of summer school physics working for this visit that Bush was coming to Midland, this rally. Well, that's like missing, 3 weeks, and it felt like 3 months. And I went back and after this event was over, and I looked at the board, and I went, yeah, no, this isn't going to work. I went back to OU, changed majors, and that event really changed my whole life, quite frankly, because that set in course motion that would heck, everything that I've done to this point was affected by that event. So I decided to get on a letter writing campaign because I decided I want to go work for the vice president. I didn't know anybody in the White House. I didn't know him. I knew George W. Of course, nobody called him then. Nobody called him George W. In fact, his nickname in Midland, I was told, was because I was much younger when he was in his partying days, was the Bombastic Bushkin. Because apparently he was pretty bombastic. So I decided, I didn't want to bug him. I had the opportunity. I knew my parents knew him, and I wanted to. We had a family friend. I wrote him a letter. I'm talking about typewriter type letter, right? And said I'd like to get involved. And I wrote a bunch of letters, and then I got some letters back. And this was obviously way before the internet and email and all those things. So you're just waiting, wondering what's going on, if anybody's listening or reading anything in the White House. And I'm writing our family friend. He's writing me back, and so one day, I get a call, or I get a package in the mail. It's an advance manual. It's all of the things that go on to produce an event, much like tonight. Tonight I'm holding a microphone. There are 2 speakers. There's a screen. You got a couple of gentlemen back here. There's a table. You got all these tables here. You got beer. This is an event, right? This is an event. Just imagine doing that on a grand scale with the leader of the free world, or in this case, the vice leader of the free world. It's still the similar type stuff. It's just you're dealing with a lot more equipment. So whenever I got this package in the mail, this advance manual, I got all geeked up because I was like, all right, I'm in. And so I got this phone number to call in the White House, but I couldn't get anybody's attention. And I said, I really, I called this guy, his name is Tony. Tony, hi, it's Tim Thompson. And I remember, sitting on the edge of my bed with a notepad, man, and I was going to call the White House, and I didn't know anything about it. I'd never been east of Louisiana at this point. I didn't even know where Washington, D.C. was on the map. And I shouldn't admit that, but I really had never been, or I didn't do any of that kind of stuff growing up. So I called Tony, I'm ready to do a trip. Yeah, why don't you call me in 2 weeks? So I'd wait. 2 weeks later. Yeah, why don't you call me in 3 weeks? Yeah, we don't have anything right now. Why don't you call me in another 2 weeks? So I did this, I documented everything, and I was really bummed. So finally I'd had it. So I decided to sit down and write George W. a note. And I said, I've done this, and this. Can you light a fire under somebody? And that's all I said. And sent it in regular mail. 4 days later, the phone rings. Hey, Tim, it's Tony at the White House. I want to see if you can come to Orlando and do a trip for us in March. And this is my spring break. I went, absolutely. So I decided I decided, well, I'm going to call George and tell him this. So I called him up, and I swear to God, he said this. He goes, "It's good to know I still got a little pull up there." True story. So I ended up doing advanced. I graduated with a business finance degree. I don't remember much about doing that. I'm glad they let me out. And I went up to, and I moved to DC, and I started traveling with him. I did a lot of trips, and while I did a whole lot, I was up there 3 years, but it felt like 30. Traveling around the country, meeting really amazing people, governors and senators and congressmen from all over the United States, and again, not knowing anything about, I didn't come here from Sikkim about politics. In fact, because at the time in Texas, we had a Republican and a Democrat senator, I just assumed that every state had one of each. Made sense to me. I mean, wouldn't that be fair to have one Democrat and one Republican? Yeah, so, I mean, that's exactly, you talk about real, that's pretty real. That's pretty vulnerable. Kid didn't even know what the heck a Republican and Democrat. So I'm painting that picture just to let you know that I wasn't one of these politicians in waiting. It wasn't my goal in life to do this. I had the opportunity, and you'll understand that that's a theme for this whole talk. I had the opportunity to do it, so I took it. I've always done that. I've learned that that's the difference. There's opportunists and there's opportunities that people take, and I was straightened out on that not too long ago. A few years back, I was like, well, I'm not an opportunist. I think that's a little bit bad connotation. So I had the opportunity, so I took it, and I worked up in the campaign, volunteered in George's office, and used to get him chewing tobacco. And he was like 40, and I was 20 or whatever, barely, and I just soaking it all up and learning as much as I could. And it's all about logistics. There are a lot of people in this room who get logistics, and there are really a lot of people in this room who don't. And I mean directions and setting up and getting things done from a logistics pure perspective. We all can do stuff. I mean, that's no, but I mean, some people excel in that. And boy, I figured out how to do it. I didn't even know what the word logistics meant. And I just tried to learn how to do it. So I worked up there for a couple of years. We won. You'll see there, I think there's some footage, can't remember, up in New Hampshire. We worked, he finished third in Iowa. I don't know, some of you may recall that. And that was, he was the front runner, bar none, going into the presidential campaign of 1988. February of 88, Iowa, finishes distant third behind Bob Dole, who was doing very well in Iowa because he's from Kansas and the farmers and all that. And then a guy named Pat Robertson. Who knew? Nobody expected this guy to do any good or that he was going to run for president and be taken seriously. And then the sitting vice president for the last 8 years, George Herbert Walker Bush. Wow, the campaign apparatus went nuts. They came into they called a big meeting, said everybody in the conference room, and I don't know, there's a couple hundred of us that felt like, not a conference room, just this main area. Go home, get a bunch of clothes, and everybody's coming back up here at 6 o'clock. Tell your families you'll be back in a week. We're all going to New Hampshire. And so overnight, we got on these buses and drove to New Hampshire, and we walked around the streets of everywhere, by God, New Hampshire, handing out literature, knocking on doors. Will you please vote for George Bush? Would you please vote for George Bush? And while we were driving up there, it snowed 22 inches in 24 hours. I had on ropers and Wranglers and a top coat that I'd got at a second-hand shop and a scarf that I'd bought somewhere. I froze my butt off. New Hampshire. I've never been to New Hampshire. And I'd never seen 22 inches of snow in 24 hours, even if I did grow up going to the mountains and stuff as a kid. All right, so he wins New Hampshire by a landslide. He heads into Super Tuesday at the time, which is all the southern states had their primary all at the same time, and he rides this big wave of momentum, and the rest is history. Becomes the 41st President of the United States. So I had the opportunity to serve as a political appointee. Basically, I was just a young paper pusher taking one set of papers and putting it in another at the Department of Commerce. I had the opportunity to move to Oklahoma City to become the political director of the Oklahoma Republican Party, so I decided to do that. Sounded good. I was making $6,000 more than I was, or maybe it's $4,000. By the way, the first job was $16,000 working on the campaign right out of college. That was for a year, by the way. And I was going to make $24,000 working in Oklahoma. I took it. I was like, oh my gosh, that just seemed like I'd hit the mother load. So I moved to Oklahoma City, absolutely hated it. One of the longest years of my life. I go from the political pulse of the world in Washington, D.C., where I'm involved with scores of folks like you and beyond every day. I mean, the bustling city, if you've always ever been there, I mean, it's one of the world's most fabulous cities, by the way, Washington, D.C. Say what you will about all the stuff that goes on, it's still an absolutely historic, a couple places like Philadelphia and Boston. Well, D.C. is one of those you just got to go to. So I go to Oklahoma City, and I'm with the same 6 people all day, every day. And my office is cherry red with no windows. And God, just now getting over that experience. So the next big phase is that I after the elections in '90, I said, I'm coming home. Or I said, I don't know what I'm going to call Dad. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, I'm coming to Houston. He was commuting between Midland and Houston. He was running a company down here Monday through Friday. He had a corporate apartment. He said, why don't you come down? I will set up. You can stay in my place if you'll cook, and I'll let you live for free while you figure out what you're going to do. Deal. Another Midland connection, Terry Jaskro, who was a producer for ABC Sports Golf Division, and Judy Rankin. If any of you watch ABC Sports when you were younger, Judy Rankin, who's one of the finest announcers, male or female, there's ever been to walk the golf fairway, is from Midland, and I grew up with her and her kid. So I said, I want to go do this. I want to get involved in golf. Have you ever heard of What Color's Your Parachute? That career kind of management? Good. No, I did every single page of that thing. It took forever, and it just kept saying golf, golf, golf. I didn't want to play. I was average. I guess I was above average, but I wasn't near good enough to even remotely consider being a professional golfer. But I wanted to get involved. So I started traveling around with ABC Sports. I had an opportunity to sit next to Jack Nicklaus and Roger Twyble and the late Dave Marr during the 1991 British Open, doing stats. You guys, I met congressmen and governors and ambassadors and foreign heads of state and all these powerful people. And when Jack freaking Nicklaus walked through the door of this booth and sat down next to me, I was completely frozen. Totally intimidated by this. So much so that I didn't even look over at him because I was just this little young peon guy, runner assistant for keeping stats. And I remember sliding a piece of paper and a pen over near the end, just hoping that he might sign it because I was too scared to ask him. I never did. So I never did get that great golf job, because let me tell you something. Television is not sexy. The sexy people on television are just that. They're on television. That's about where it stops. There's nothing that's too glamorous. It's like a circus. If many of you maybe have done, maybe you are on television, you worked it, I'm sorry. It's a unique experience. When you get one room in a hotel that they pay you, you get $50 a day. Oh, and for the runners, you get depending on how many runners show up to work, you're all in that one room. So it could be 3 of you, or it could be 6 or 7 of you in one hotel room. So that was kind of crazy. So I decided quickly I didn't want to do that anymore. The Republican National Convention came here in '92. Many of you may have worked it, or you've heard of it, or knew people, or what have you that worked it. I kept up my contacts, got a job, and then I started going to a guy here that I knew in Washington. I ran into him. He said, he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to find a job. He said, why don't you come live with me? So I got out of the deal with Dad. He was up at Guns Point, Greens Point, north of town. It was pretty much Guns Point back then in this apartment place. And I moved closer to town. And he introduced me to this place called Second Baptist Church. Anybody go there, heard of it? Oh, there are a few people, yeah. So I decided to go there, and I play basketball also. And so I heard they had really good basketball. I said, I'm going to go check it out. So I grab my ball, put on my shoes, I walk into the gym, and there's full court game going over here, full court game over here, and it's like league games. I'm like, great. So what do I do? Okay. Let's see, I got 6, I got 11, 7. Okay. So I picked the bench with the least amount of players on it, walked over and said, hey, do you guys need any help? And he's like, sure, have us, sit down, and threw me a jersey. So I was hooked on that. A lot of guys who are single go to second for the women and the girls, and I just wanted to know, everybody know, I wasn't that guy. I went there because of basketball. So I started going there. I got really deep into that scene as a single person and rededicated my life to Christ at Second Baptist. And I met this gal one day during Sunday school. And I remember her telling me what she did for a living, and I remember telling my friend, you don't run into too many of those like that. Never saw her again. It was about 4 months later. I ran into her at a sports bar, Two Rows. Everybody heard of that, maybe at Rice Village. She came in the door. I was like, hey, remember me? We met at church. Yeah, church. Oh, what are you doing? Nothing. What are you doing? Oh, sit down. Have a glass of wine. We traded business cards, started dating there shortly thereafter, and then I proposed. So I would like to stop here for a second, hit the lights, and let you guys hear a little bit about my proposal to my wife, Meredith.
Mr. Houston's Roger is live in the news center.
Well, Camrell, this is one marriage proposal you definitely don't want to miss, and it's all caught on camera. Coming up next in The Buzz, we'll show you where and how Tim pops the big questions when his girlfriend is least expecting it. Here's your chance to bowl to the disco beat and help out a good cause at the same time.
In The Buzz, the Houston couple is taking the plunge not once but twice. News of Houston's Roseanne Rogers joins us live in the news center with more.
Well, Camrell, this is the summer of marriage proposals here at Channel 2. Our own Dominique Soxa and Susan Linden both recently got engaged. And now one of our viewers has just popped the big question to his longtime girlfriend. And as you're about to see, one plunge wasn't enough. Meredith Fracker and Tim Thompson are going skydiving for the very first time. Little does Meredith know that Tim has something else in mind after the big jump.
Meredith, I'm getting ready to propose to you. You're the love of my life. I love you more than anything in this world. I'm so excited to be here. I'm falling for you today.
All the instructors at Skydive Houston are in on the surprise marriage proposal. Tim begins pacing, but Meredith thinks it's just because he's nervous about the jump. Tim lands first, and just before Meredith hits the ground, she sees something.
A huge tarp that said, "And then marry me." And Tim was out there with his arms raised, yelling, "I love you."
Then Tim gets down on one knee and proposes to Meredith. Now that they're both back on solid ground, we met at the Lancaster Hotel, the site of their very first date. So when are the happy couple tying the knot?
Super Bowl weekend, January 29th.
Are you excited?
Yes, very
I'm not going to
excited.
plan on watching the Super Bowl.
I got married in January of. Got married in there we go. Got married in January 2001, and it was a fabulous event, and we had a great event, or ceremony, family, friends, and all that. And we moved in this little house right over here off of I-10 and Work Road, and we did a lot of things together. We didn't want a dog yet because we wanted to travel. We didn't want to have any kids yet because we were, just getting going. And I played a lot of golf, as mentioned, and I started playing competitive golf and really trying to figure out how good I could be, and started really working on that as much as I could, and then started entering a bunch of tournaments and failing, and then still kept entering them and failing as far as the qualifiers. And then I started kind of getting it and started actually having some success. And then one day I got a call saying, would you like to come be the 15th seed of a 16 seed tournament of match play? I was like, yeah. So I came, I played in it and got all the way to the finals. And so I played the #1 seed. So I'm teeing off on this Saturday morning, which is the last round at Memorial Park. And at the time it was a big deal for me because I'd never advanced that far in any kind of golf competition ever. And so my wife is a marathon runner and runs 10 miles every Saturday, and actually ran in the Boston Marathon once. So I mean, she was a gifted runner, and so she and her buddy came and surprised me on the first tee with a kiss. Said, "Good luck, I'll see you on the back nine." So she followed me. I got drilled. I don't know if anybody knows about match play, but you play by hole, and I got beat like 6-4. So I only played 13 holes that whole day. So she only got to see me play a couple holes, but it was still a fun time. And I was starting a new job. What I left out, I guess, during my Second Baptist years, I worked for a company called AIM. It's a mutual fund company, and that's where I worked when I met her. And I had just taken a job, and we were getting ready to move to Dallas. And I was going to work for American Airlines Investment Group, selling. I had a really good opportunity to become. My wife had a very good job at the time. But I said, honey, I'm really going to become a much better father and husband if I get this job. So we were planning on moving to Dallas. I was to begin training on Monday. And then I went over to a friend's house to download some music. And back then there still wasn't iTunes. And I came back and she was watching a movie. I said, oh, well, what are you doing? She said, I'm watching, I don't know, some movie. And at the very end of the movie, the guy loses the girl, right? And he looks into the camera, he's like, guys, once you have, the name of the girl was Stella. He said, once you've had your Stella, you never forget her. And I looked over at her and I said, honey, I just want you to know you're my Stella, and I love you very much. She said, I'm glad to know that. And then about that time, we heard a distant thunderstorm, in the distance, and I said, oh man, just played this golf match, I'm exhausted. Honey, I'm gonna hit the couch. She said, oh great, all right, sounds good. I'm gonna go outside. And listen, it sounds beautiful. And then this is what happened next.
From KPRC TV, where local news comes first, this is News to Houston at 5.
A Northwest Houston woman thought she was perfectly safe this past Saturday. She was in her yard. It was cloudy, but it was not yet raining. But in just moments, she was dead after a deadly strike of lightning. News to Houston's Lisa Baldwin is live in Northwest Houston with that story.
There were 2 thunderstorms on Saturday across the Houston area when this happened, described as weak and isolated. But in the end, they were enough to take a precious life. This is Meredith Thompson on one of her happiest days, skydiving for the first time, her husband about to propose.
Meredith, I'm getting ready to propose to you. You're the love of my life. I love you more than anything in this world.
Their love story was featured on News 2 Houston. This is how Tim popped the question.
A huge tarp that said, and then marry me. And Tim was out there with his arms raised, yelling, I love you.
Now, just 2 years later, flowers mark the spot where Meredith's life ended, struck by lightning in front of the couple's home in Northwest Houston.
She was so loving to everyone, and I totally adored her.
Tim says Meredith stepped outside last Saturday afternoon just before 4 o'clock to watch the thunderstorm when lightning hit. It seemed out of nowhere.
It was an absolute surgical pinpoint laser strike. Her shoulder, they say possibly through her heart and abdomen, and ended up through her foot.
Relatives say Meredith was a marathon runner and a newlywed with a huge zest for life. The National Weather Service reports only 80 people die in the U.S. from lightning strikes each year, and that many times weaker storms can ironically be more deadly because they don't seem as serious.
Oftentimes, they occur from weak thunderstorms rather than the strong ones. The ones that come through barreling and are dropping 30 to 40 volts a minute give their own warning signs. Obviously, if you see something vicious headed toward you, you go inside.
But Meredith's family believes her death was divine intervention, that it was God's will and her time to go.
This thing appeared, it struck her, and it left. And God plucked a flower from his creation and took her home.
And the National Weather Service reminds everyone that there are more thunderstorms and thus lightning in southeast Texas and South Florida than any other parts of the country. We are live in Northwest Houston. I'm Lisa Baldwin.
And here are some more facts about lightning. It kills nearly 100 people every year in the U.S. and injures hundreds of others. A single bolt of lightning can generate temperatures up to 50,000 degrees and can travel as far as 40 miles. As for the chance of being struck by lightning, weather experts say they are better than winning the lottery.
going.
You're watching ABC 13, Houston's news leader.
Summertime also means lightning strike season. A young Houston woman was killed over the weekend, struck by lightning, and tonight we spoke with her husband. 26-year-old Meredith Thompson was outside Saturday afternoon doing some gardening. It wasn't raining at the time. There were some dark clouds overhead. Meredith's husband, Tim, was inside their home at the time. He suddenly heard a loud pop.
I had my eyes closed, and this light just hit me, and it was just tremendous. Pow! It was really, really sharp and quick.
Just an improbable story. Tim found his wife lying on the ground. Lightning had struck Meredith in her left shoulder. It traveled through her body, exited her left foot. She was taken to Spring Branch Medical Center, where she later died. The couple had been married just a little over a year. Thompson says his faith is helping him get through this.
Now, in this time of year, thunderstorms can be deadly.
Every year, lightning kills nearly 100 people in the United States. A year ago today, one of those victims was right here in Houston. WB39's Christy Powers has more.
37-year-old Tim Thompson will never forget what happened 1 year ago today.
It just was a massive explosion, like a bomb went off just right on top of the house, and I came to the door, and you know, she was laying literally right here. And this is where the lightning hit. This is where it struck. That's the only remnants that there's anything that ever happened here.
The weather was fairly nice the day Meredith Thompson was struck and killed by lightning. There were just 2 weak isolated thunderstorms in the Houston area, but they can be the most deadly and dangerous.
The weaker storms don't have those visual cues that a very large squall line might have.
One of the worst places to be when lightning strikes, an open space, like a golf course, where you become a target.
Charges tend to focus on a point, so a tree out in an open field is a likely target, top of a tall building. Water sports are big around here. Get off the water, by all means.
If your hair starts to stand on end, lightning may be about to strike close by. Crouch down, put your hands on your knees, and make sure you're standing on the balls of your feet. The goal here, to minimize the contact with the ground.
You don't want to lie flat on the ground. Sure, that'll make you the lowest point, but now if there's some of the electricity is spreading on the wet ground, for example, you've exposed your whole body to the electricity.
A good plan to avoid getting struck, the 30-30 rule.
30 seconds. You see lightning, it takes 30 seconds until you hear the thunder. That's roughly 6 miles.
And that's dangerous. Wait 30 minutes after the last lightning strike before venturing out. For Tim, this information comes too little, too late.
She's not here, and it went all the way through her. It didn't just kind of hit her. God took a precious flower, ripe, beautiful, glowing flower, and took her home.
Christy Powers, WB39 News.
So there's some raw and some real for you. Yeah. So nobody.
Probably plenty of you have experienced some tragedy in your life, but you can't prepare for something like that. You know, they don't teach you anything like that in college or high school. And it's been a long 10 years of summer. And so Steve talked about the darkness, being in the valley. Brother, you bring up your story, I'll listen. I get it. If you have a Me Too that's close to that, even if you don't think it's close to that, I'll listen. Okay? Let's just get that straight. I haven't remarried. Usually at this point in a talk like this, I usually will say something to the effect of, if you have a daughter, if you have a granddaughter that is single, then I might be interested in meeting her. But I'm not going to do that tonight. So just thought I'd let you know. So. Wow, so I didn't move to Dallas, obviously. I didn't take that job, obviously. Although, true to form, they were the most amazing people that I've ever really come in contact. So I didn't even start it yet, and they kept me on the payroll. I ended up trying to go up there to start working, and then one day I just said, time out, I can't do this. A moment like that, guys, makes you really question, why am I here? What am I here for? What am I supposed to do in life? What do I really care about? What do I not care about? I couldn't care less about making $1 million a year. Couldn't care less about being the #1 mutual fund salesman for AMR. I didn't care about any title. I didn't care about much of anything. And thankfully, I had a pretty damn big support group here in town. I don't have any family here, blood family, but I had a lot of people hugging on me. And David's here tonight. There's a lot of people that I was able to huddle up with. Thankfully, I didn't get into drugs or alcohol to numb the pain, although I definitely treated more than one female badly. I took my, I am a good-looking guy, but I haven't been on the cover of any magazines. So, but apparently, it's pretty easy if you can stand up, kind of straight, and you have a decent set of clothes, and you can smile, have a rap. You can get with a girl, and so I took advantage of it in the bad way, and I'm still dealing with that. So, George W. Bush had become president of the United States. One big point I want to make. That was July 7th of 2001. Anybody else know what happened later on in 2001? Anyone? 9/11. So I'm grieving by myself. And what kind of plane? One of the planes that went down? American Airlines, so the company I'm getting ready to go work for. So I'm walking through the lobby of American Airlines headquarters in Fort Worth, and there are these monster kind of, what do you call it? Not a monument. Somebody help me here. A memorial kind of impromptu in the middle of this lobby of this major corporation because they had people die, their own family, if you will, their employees. And then not only that, we got the whole nation grieving because of loss of what happened on 9/11. So I'm telling you what, you talk about rocked. I didn't know what to do. I really didn't. I resigned from AMR and I joined Champions Golf Club because Meredith didn't want me to join because they didn't let ladies play golf before noon on Saturday. Many of you are married to women like that. Thank God bless them, right? So I joined because I could. And I took some time off to try to figure out what I wanted to do. The White House had found out what had happened. I had not come close to wanting to move up there or do anything. I didn't campaign. I don't know. Word travels in something like this. Back in Midland, there were churches that I was told. I mean, the letters that came in, it was overwhelming. Have you ever experienced grace, where somebody does something for you that you just think, I do not deserve that one bit? And it was really hard to receive gifts from people, gifts of anything, time. Gifts of the condolences, flowers, food, all of these things. Everybody probably in this room has experienced death of some sort. It's hard sometimes to receive gifts from people when you just feel so dirty and helpless. And you go, I'm going to do this because I want to do this, whether you need me to or not. So I decided to regroup and play a lot of golf. I mean, I thankfully didn't have to work for a little while. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And a friend of mine was out on the golf course. Damn here. And a friend said, Brian Montgomery is one of my old roommates from back early in the 90s, is head of advance for George W. You ought to call him and go do some trips. So I decided to do that. I thought this might be a good way to kind of regroup and kind of get back on my feet. And so what I've got coming up is some of my travels and some of the video from that. And I hope I haven't been too long, but I assure you that these are fun little videos that you'll appreciate. I may not appreciate, but you'll enjoy seeing. So this one is, this is my first advance trip for this President Bush in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that's Norm Coleman, who is running for the U.S. Senate. And they're getting off of Air Force One at the airport in Minneapolis. It's snowing, it's very cold. And my job at the airport was to make sure all the motorcade cars are there, and that's Jesse, the governor, the body Ventura. He's a much bigger looking guy now, isn't he? I mean, he was a large human being. I got to meet him. And there I am in the background. And my job is, they greet, you always see these guys, they greet them. I leaned in and gave him a nod. All of a sudden, he just stops. And then he points. And then he's right back in line. He gives me that hug and he says, I'm really sorry about what happened to your wife, and I'm really glad you're out here helping me. And then he got right back in that line. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? So I had, that was the beginning, and I ended up traveling for about a year with him, doing these events. So let me see what's next. These are very short, by the way. It's not going to be anything like the news footage, thankfully. Yeah. So this is Air Force One taking off. I mean, who doesn't want to see that? There's no other reason other than if you get a chance to see it, I don't give a damn who's in the White House. Go see that plane take off. It is a very, very powerful experience to see it land and take off. So that's that. I went to Rome for the president. That's the Vatican right there. And why don't you stop it here, Hank? This is a place called Villa Madama. And this is where the popes go to retreat, like a retreat weekend. You've heard of Camp David. And this is where the popes go way back in the day to have a weekend away. Well, this is a massive hallway, and he was meeting with Silvio Berlusconi, who's still the prime minister. Well, some people think he's still the prime minister of Italy. Quite a ladies' man himself, and I wouldn't put him on the cover of any magazine, by the way. And so he and the president, I get on the, you had to wear the earpieces, and the guys go, the head guy goes, all right, I want everybody out of the hallway. We got the prime minister and the president. I want a clean shot through this hallway. And they were going to another room to watch or to listen to Andrea Bocelli, the opera singer, the blind opera singer. You guys heard of him? And to have an acoustic sit around, speaking of a campfire, sitting around the couches, listening to Andrea Bocelli sing. So I'm there to do some of the logistics or whatever. So I get over here in a door jam about like this. So you guys are like in the middle of this hall, and I'm standing there like this. Now, one of the things I didn't tell you is that before I bulked up, I used to be really tall and thin. It usually works. And my nickname growing up in Midland was One Iron, because that's the longest, skinniest club in the bag, right? I got all dressed up to go play golf, and my great uncle came out. He's about 75 years old, 80. He goes, "My God, son, you look like a well-dressed One Iron." Well, the nickname stuck, and so I worked at the country club, shagging clubs and cleaning them and picking up range balls, and all the members there called me One Iron. So fast forward, I had to set that up because I get in the door jam, and I've only seen him a couple of times. So I'm in Minnesota, right? I don't just go up and go, "Hey George, what's up? How's it being president today?" And especially advanced, you're kind of invisible. So they say get out of the way. So I decided I want to see him, but I don't want to get in the way. So I'm in this door jam about like this. And here they come, about where those two gentlemen are, and they start walking. And this is a grand hall. All of a sudden, it's about like this. I mean, it's about like this warehouse, about the size, this grand, maybe it's not as wide, but it's about as tall. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, you hear, "My God, look at there, it's a human One Iron," right? Really? I've done a few trips, and some of the people know that I know him pretty good, but I don't exactly go, "Hey man, I know the president, I know him better than you." I'm not that kind of guy. I mean, I like it, believe me, but I didn't try to advertise it, and I couldn't. I'm 6'4", and I'm just and the guys are coming out going, "What did he say?" And so that was a funny Rome story. All right. This is a picture of the cabin. You can hit this for a second. That's a picture of the cabin inside Air Force One. They let all the staff on the last trip of a foreign trip. They go, "Anybody want to fly back on Air Force One, or you can take your commercial flight?" And I assure you, it's the only way to travel. Air Force One is a really cool plane to get on. And that's a hallway like sofa that I'm sitting on. I don't know if we can go back or not on this thing. But anyway, you saw briefly. That's okay. This is, and that's landing at Air Force. Okay, hang on a second. So that's landing. That other picture you saw of Air Force One, there are 2 Air Force Ones, by the way. There's one that, and they on a foreign trip, they take 2 of them in case what? One of them breaks down. So they take staff and Secret Service and a lot of reporters on a foreign trip. So the support plane, Air Force One takes off, and every plane that has the president in it is called Air Force One. It doesn't matter if it's a Cessna 206 or a 747 Air Force plane. Whatever he is on is called Air Force One. Whatever he's not on it, that other plane is simply called N-28,000. Is that right? Anybody know about planes? I know the tail number was 28,000. And then Air Force One, when he's not on, is called 29,000. And so he takes off first because he's the president, and then the other plane takes off, and then we pass him in the air, and then we land first. And so that was the plane that he was on. So technically, while I was on Air Force, I say I was on Air Force One, they give you a card that says welcome aboard. He wasn't on the plane I was on. So that's that. Go ahead and hit this. Yeah, because who doesn't want to have a kiss snippet of video in a campfire greeting with some guys? You go, well, what in the heck does that have anything to do with it? It doesn't. I just wanted to show you. So I saw Kiss. I never seen him before. Go ahead, Hank. Okay, I had to keep going. I had an opportunity to work with, you might recognize, that was Dario Franchitti. This is Chris Tucker, and then that's Bono. You can click it here. So Bono we were over at a trip in Russia, and they said, Bono's come to the United States to talk about AIDS. He wants to make America know about AIDS. And it's like, oh, okay. And then he needs some media help, and I went, sure, I'm in. So I go to Chicago to help him run around with Chris Tucker and actually Dario Franchitti. It's actually Ashley Judd is married to Dario Franchitti, the IndyCar racer, right? The actress. And I was like, I really don't want her picture. I mean, she's beautiful and all, but and Dario Franchitti's a freaking IndyCar racer, man. I want to get this picture. Okay, sorry, I got a little excited. And so I was really excited, of course, to meet him, and he is one mellow dude. And very, very cool. And you talk about raw and real. This guy is raw and real all the time. I don't know how much you know about him, what you think about him. I saw a lot of him in 2 days, and it was really amazing. But one of the things I got to do is they closed down this one restaurant late at night, and we got to go have dinner. But it's more like he's over there with like Bobby Shriver, who's Maria Shriver's husband, and he's one of the big donors. And all these big, like Bill Hybels, ever heard of Willow Creek in Chicago? It's a big church. And all these big hitters, and I'm way back here at this table. But I don't care, I'm having freaking dinner with Bono as far as you guys know. Right? So I know that he's a spiritual man, and I know that he's a Christian, actually. And I decided I'm going to go up and tell him the story of Meredith. So I literally got up from back there and walked over, and there's a chair. This guy just happened to get up. And I pulled this chair back, and I sat down, and I go, hey, Bono, I'm Tim Thompson. Yeah, Tim. I said, I want to tell you a story about my wife and what happened. He goes, all right. So I told him. And I got through, it wasn't very long, and I looked at him, and he started telling me all these great, great things that I have no idea what he said, right? And I looked at him, and he says, Tim, let me tell you something. This is the only thing I remember. Tim, let me tell you something. Sometimes God uses people who fuck up, and other times he uses people who get fucked. And that was it. Noodle on that for a second. You're pretty much either in one camp or the other camp. And I got up, I was like, that's it. And he turned around and started talking to the guy next to him. I'm done with you. And I can't remember a thing, but man, that's a really neat thing. And I was so excited. I told Steve, I go, man, I'm going to say the F-bomb tonight when I get here. I always have to say, sometimes he uses people who mess up, and other times he uses people who get messed with. This is the first public setting I've ever heard. That is truly what he said. Unabridged version, that's right. Bono. All right, go ahead. Bono. All right, so we're backstage, and he's tuning a guitar. He's playing at Willow Creek, and that's, you can stop it. And he's tuning his guitar. And if any of you are U2 fans, they came out with an album. Yeah, it's either what is it? All That You Can't Leave Behind, or How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. One of them had New York on it. Anybody? I don't remember. Anyway, so he played this song. He's like, we just finished recording, and I don't realize how big this song is. It's a pretty big song. If you're a U2 fan, it got a lot of airplay back then. And he says, and I have absolutely been a brilliant wizard this whole time. Anything that needed to be done, man, I was on top of it. I knew where the cleaners was, or do you know where's the bathroom, or I need, and he travels with a couple of ladies and a couple of guys, what have you, and I'm like, okay, or I need, does anybody have a Kleenex? Well, I happen to have one, or not Kleenex, what was it? It's like, where's Mrs. Hybels? Oh, well, she's right here. Grab her. It's right there. It's just Johnny on the spot. And then he says the following. Does anybody have any chapstick? And I pull it up, and I'm like, because it's just so funny that I had this chapstick. And so what do? I mean, if somebody gives you a chapstick, what's the first thing you're gonna do? You're probably gonna scrape the top off. So I get it. I give it to him, and I go, hey, go ahead and take it. And well, hang on. You probably, I don't know what to do. Like, okay, well, should I just scrape off? You probably want to scrape off the top. So I scraped off a little bit of the top, and I give it back to him like this, and he goes. Just gives it back, like, he didn't give a damn about my chapstick, about if my lips have been on it. And so that's it. That's my chapstick story. Okay. Thank you. I'm almost done, really. Go ahead, Hank. This was a clinic there's an AIDS clinic in Africa, in Uganda. All right, click on here. I want you to go back, if you can, I really, just indulge me. Yeah, that's one right here. Oh, yeah, sorry. You're right. Right there. Okay. See this lady right here? Her name is Agnes. She's from Africa. She has AIDS. So she is one of the ladies that he's traveling with to talk about the plight in Africa. As many of you know, he came over here and he's talking about Africa and all the things that were going on in Africa about AIDS. And we need to give Africa billions of dollars to help with this travesty and give them some medicine, all this stuff. Her name's Agnes. Great. Okay, click on it. I don't know how many months later it was, but I ended up in freaking Africa with George W. doing this event for this AIDS clinic. Pause. That's freaking Agnes, who had nothing to do with Bono or with George W. Bush or anything. And I remember going, hey, Agnes, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in Chicago with Bono. I was like, I mean, it's just the coincidence of the fact that she became a very, poster, I hate to use that word, she was a very visible person in regards to the plight of AIDS in Africa. But it still, at the same time, was pretty amazing that had something to do totally different and meet this woman, and there you go. All right, so that's in Africa. I thought that was a very, very interesting. All right, you got to throw in some monkeys. This is at my hotel. I'm standing there. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And there are these two monkeys. This is in the morning. There's a monkey up there. I don't know. If you guys haven't seen, if you guys see monkeys, well, fine for you. I hadn't, and I was going to take a video, and you're all going to watch it for a second. And these two monkeys are like preening each other. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? I'm talking to them, right? All right, so there you go. It's kind of like the Kiss concert. Y'all get to sit here. Steve said, make it real and wrong. All right, pause that. You guys ever remember the first time you got that real big fat erection on that one girl? Y'all remember that? I better hear everybody going, hell yeah, I remember that first monster that you with that girl. And you wake up the next day and you're kind of going, oh my gosh, what's that called? Well, there's my version of blue ball. I'm walking by the hotel and I look up and you've got to be effing kidding me. There's a monkey with blue freaking balls. So there you go. That's an Africa story. Next. There's some Africa soldiers. They just thought I was the greatest to get a picture. I was like, you guys have got uniforms on, so keep it going. That's okay. All right, so I had the opportunity. You can just pause it here. You need to back up. Sorry. I had the opportunity to work. So I was still living in Houston. The phone rings one day and it said, "Hey, Vice President Cheney needs some help in the advance office." I told him you'd be the right guy. Long story short, I went up there, I interviewed, I got the job. So I started doing helping out in the office, which means I managed all of the advance. You need to back up. So, yeah, no, just hit play and then we can hit pause. Okay, so this is inside of Air Force 2. All right, and the reason why this is such a funny picture is this: when you're taking off, they give you, I mean, you're like a freaking god when you get on these planes. They think that you are just, this is like, welcome, Mr. Thompson. This is the Air Force actually, of course, run the planes. Well, this is taking off. And so we got grapes and apples and bananas and water and papers and all the stuff. Where you go when you're going up, all the stuff started falling into our laps, and that's the picture of capturing that moment of taking off, and everybody's stuff's flying everywhere. By the way, you don't have to turn your cell phones off when you take off and land in Air Force 1 or 2. You just, all of a sudden, you just start rolling. There are no announcements. I think there's an announcement of buckle up. That's about it. All right. This next one is a CH-47 helicopter. Many of you are in the military. Maybe you flew one of these or flew on it. This is at the Vice President's residence in Washington, and I got on this thing. It's paused. Let me tell you, there's nothing sexy about the inside of a CH-47 helicopter. It is military soldier stuff, and that's it. But it was a pretty amazing experience. So we take this thing and go over to Maryland to duck hunt. Anybody hunt in this room? I assume there's a lot of hunters. We got a lot of game over here. I only worked in Cheney's office for 6 months. I went on 9 hunting trips with this guy. Yeah, I went down to Falfurrias where they had that, where that guy got shot. I didn't go hunting. Yeah. So I went on 9 hunting trips. This guy is an outdoorsman. And there's a little bit about that coming up. It was really amazing that he takes the CH-47 over to Maryland. Well, he took the other kind of the shiny helicopter. He took that one over there, but then that's the one I rode over with a couple of, like, CIA briefer. And we landed in Ocean City, Maryland, or wherever the heck it was, so he could shoot ducks. By the way, I never got to shoot a gun around him. This is the reenactment of Kitty Hawk, the actual plane from Kitty Hawk, from the Wright brothers. And this was the opening of the Air and Space Museum outside of Washington when it was open. They had John Travolta, they had, who's the senator, John Glenn, who was a former astronaut, and Vice President Cheney did the opening. Go ahead with this. And so this is literally the opening of this museum, Air and Space Museum, and that's the actual plane. Well, you guys, this is how long that thing flew. And that was it. You got the 2 guys up there, or I guess one of them, right? I don't think they're both in it, but one of them is. And that's it. It's like 16, 18 seconds of flight. And that was that. So I thought that was interesting. Maybe a little bit better than not as good as KISS, but all right. So this is a picture. Okay. This is that other picture was a picture of like a G5 jet, and we take this thing. This is in the morning. And I'm like, that is a really cool picture. So I just grabbed my camera, and I am not a shutterbug, but I just decided that was a neat picture. You got the wing, and I'm on this jet. Well, I hate to say this because you're taxpayers. We took 2 of these G5s to Stuttgart, Arkansas to hunt frickin' ducks. All right. Well, he rides on one, but as the head guy of the advance, I get the other one. So I'm like the senior guy on this freaking G5. We land in Stuttgart. Well, we don't land in Stuttgart. One of the coolest experiences ever was being on this plane, and it was really bad weather in Arkansas, and we were going to have to land somewhere else. And so the military officer is always a senior military aide for the vice president and for the president. And he's with the vice president, and the phone rings. I'm like, he's on one G5, calling me on the other G5, asking me what we should do. I'm like, this is a pretty good one. This is a pretty good moment. So I thought that was interesting. So we had to figure out how to land the planes. We had to land first, and then he landed, get the motorcade. We had to drive like 15 miles away. But anyway, so press it, and then these are Secret Service agents and me. And it is so cold and miserable. And we're just standing around looking at ducks, waiting for him to pull the trigger. I mean, seriously. Stuttgart, yeah. And there they are. They're on the other side of these trees, and we're just looking here, just waiting for something. This is a motorcade. You can keep it going. This is a motorcade that I took a picture of in Rolling Rock, Pennsylvania. We went, guess what? Duck hunting. So, and I'm in the residence, or this is exclusive private club of which you guys may have hunted in these, but I hadn't. And I'm telling you, it's pretty snotty, snoosh, pretty highbrow stuff. And the photographer comes back, and he comes into this lobby where we are, and he goes, I said, well, so how was it? He goes, let's put it this way. There are more dead ducks than there are live ducks right now. This is landing inside the cockpit of Air Force Two. It's against the rule to take a camera in there, but I did it because it was going to be my last trip, and I didn't care if I got, fired because it was going to be my last trip. All right, so pause this one. President Bush went down to Daytona 500 in 2004, and to start to do the ladies and gentlemen, start your engines. Well, they didn't want freaking suits walking around on pit road. So they give us these uniforms, and I became the pit crew for the day for Bobby Labonte's number 18, Interstate Batteries number 18, and I got the whole uniform, and this is some footage from that, some pictures and some footage from the Daytona 500. That's Air Force One taking off afterwards. I didn't take that picture, by the way. That was in Sports Illustrated, but that was an amazing picture. So this is pit road before, so I messed that picture up, but this is pit road before the race. All these people are congregating. I've never been to Daytona 500, by the way. I hope there's some race fans in here. I mean, this is a guy's event, right? Okay, so I take a picture of number 8. Who's number 8 at the time? Anybody know? Little E, little Junior, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Guess who won the race that day? Dale Earnhardt freaking Jr. I was like, of all the cars to take a picture of. I didn't take any, the whole point of this, I didn't take any other pictures of other cars, I don't think. All right, so here's a picture of the president. Doing the interviews. I'm taking this. He's looking at me. Never mind. Let's keep going. So these are all the drivers, and he's over there shaking hands with some of the people on pit road. Tough to see him, but again, I'm not a professional photographer. I thought it was pretty amazing to have all these drivers really all over watching him. So we get in a motorcade on pit road, and we drive down the track. And this is right before the start of the Daytona 500, and we drive in. And there's a picture of it. I don't know if y'all can see it very well. All right, pause it here. So inside the West Wing, they have pictures that they blow up like this of events of every week or so. They totally change out in the West Wing all the pictures that are events where the president is. So I'm walking, and you don't just get to wander in there. By the way, this T means temporary. They didn't give me access to the West Wing. I didn't go in there and just kick it with George every day. But I got in there one day, and I'm walking through, and I look up, and I'm, holy crap, I was at this event. So I start looking at the picture. So this is a picture of me taking a picture of me. All a picture of me looking at a picture of me, I thought that was pretty crazy. I was like, really, in the West Wing? All right, that's pretty neat. So that was a unique experience. Okay, pause it here. I worked at the U.S. Department of Commerce, did export trade after I left Cheney's office, because let me tell you, after a couple of hunts, I mean, you stay at like Budget Inn, Best Western. I mean, you're going to Falfurrias, Texas. You're going to Thomasville, Georgia, Rolling Rock, Pennsylvania. You know, these are not swanky places to go hunt. You know, it's hunt, right? Well, I decided that I wanted to go do something else, and I ended up getting an appointment over at the Department of Commerce doing export promotion stuff. But Ronald Reagan died, and they had the caisson, or I guess it's called a caisson, the processional down Constitution Avenue, right next to my office. And this is the, I don't want to mess this up, the riderless horse, where the boots are backwards, signifying that he'll never ride again. Back in the cavalry days, right? Anybody want to correct me on that? That was a really powerful experience to attend that funeral, and went to the Washington Cathedral for that. Amazing experience. Go ahead. I think the next little bit is in the Capitol Rotunda, where he was lying in state. And these people waited hours to get in to the Capitol to watch, just to view the casket. So I thought that was neat. This is off my balcony in my apartment. That is fog, and soon into view is the Washington Monument. The entire city's under fog, and that's all you can see is the Washington Monument.
Barely see any building inside the district.
Usually you can see the little skydive or bungee jumping in New Zealand. That's in Malaysia. These guys said that they were the tallest two people on the planet. They weren't, but they were much taller than me. This is in New Zealand. Thought that was kind of freaky. So, yeah, I don't. When do you show that to somebody? Steve shouldn't have given me the microphone. All right, anybody heard of the Burj Al Arab? That's the in Dubai. So this is some footage inside that hotel of inside the Burj Al Arab. All right, there's a helipad where helicopters landing. Right. All right, pause it here. Well, there's a picture of Tiger Woods hitting a golf ball. Well, President Bush went over there and to do a trip, and I got to go, and I was in charge of the events going on at this hotel. And they gave us a back of the house kind of VIP tour. Well, guess what I decided to do? Go ahead and click it, Hank. It's dark and rains 3 days a year in Dubai. And unfortunately, this was one of them. But I smacked the golf ball right off of that helipad. And I did it before anybody could say no. And if you can think about a helipad, it's concrete. Like, what am I going to use for a tee? So I'm literally walking over there. I'm looking around like, a lot of uses for a chapstick. You take the wax down a bit, put that golf ball right on top of there, and I just freaking nailed it. I hit the edge off first till the ball wouldn't stick to it. Right? And I put it straight out in the middle of the Persian Gulf. I did. I actually, truth be told, since you're asking, I absolutely worm burned the first one straight into they have a catch fence, and I go, we got to do this again. And then I just nailed the second one, and the guy who's like the tour director. He doesn't know that. I'm walking in the elevator. I've got this driver in my hand. Like, I'm going to go. You know my motto, guys? And I really, really encourage you to use this. Go until you hear glass. You're driving somewhere and your back window glass. All right, let's stop. What can I do for you? Yeah. So that's my motto. I'll go. Oh, you don't want me to hit a golf ball up here. Gosh, I'm probably way over time. We're almost done. I did want to say, because this is a total another 30 minutes talk, which I'm not going to do. I had the opportunity when I left Washington to go into the Oval Office, and unfortunately I added this very late. I don't even think you can see the top photo of me walking in, and then that's a picture of me and the president. You can pause it. And that's me and the president in the Oval Office. And I will say this. There's not a cooler utterance in the world when you go up to the White House and the Secret Service says, "May I help you?" And you go, "Yeah, I'm here to see the president." That's, outside of I love you, I think that's one of the coolest utterances I've ever said. May I help you? I'm here to see the president. That's all I said. Went into the lobby, waited. They said, okay, come on. And these guys were walking, or actually I hadn't moved yet, and these guys were kind of parading down this hallway. And this one guy kind of stops me. He looks at me and goes, are you the human one-arm? I'm by myself in this waiting area. I've never been in the Oval Office. I've rarely been in the West Wing. And I went, yes, sir, I am. It's a national security advisor. Man, it's good to meet you, man. He's looking forward. I just got kicked out of the Oval Office, man. He's looking forward to meeting you. I'm like, are you kidding? The national security advisor, the president's like, get out. I've got to come see the human one-arm's coming in to see me. Next guy comes out. Two guys. They go up, they walk past me. Excuse me. Are you the one-arm? Yes, I am. So that was, so that was a really freaky experience. That these guys got kicked out. Who they're talking about Iraq or some sort of like age, some sort of congressional legislation that they're having to deal with, and they got kicked out because he wanted to see the one-arm. So, sure enough, the doors open up. There you go. The girl goes, are you ready? Like, kidding me? I'm ready. Open the door up. I'm ready. Yeah, I'm ready. So the door opens. He goes, one-arm, get in here. Let's get us a picture. Before I know, I'm whisked in. I sit in front of his desk. The photographer goes, click. He goes, come on over here. And you guys know, you've seen the picture where you got the fire right here, and you got the two wing-back chairs, right? You've seen them since you were a little kid. Ford, Carter, Nixon. They all got the heads at state. And he goes, sit down. Wham, he sits down. Wham, I sit down. And no one is in the Oval Office but the two of us. And I just went, and you could hear a pin drop. I was like, there's no aides. There are no girls sitting around the corner. There's no Secret Service guy. There's just the two of us. And it was just an incredible experience. And I brought with him, the Houston Chronicle did a story about me in Washington and talking about my wife's death and what I was doing, and then I was working for him and all this stuff. And I brought the article because I wanted him to see it. And he says, so I figured that he's just going to kind of look at it and go, oh, yeah, right, yeah, good. Well, how you doing? What's going on? Yeah, okay. I thought it was just going to be a couple of minutes. It was about 25 minutes worth of just me and him, leader of the free world, and he is wanting to hear about my wife's, well, and so he sits down, pulls out his reading glasses, opens his paper up, and it's a full-page thing, and reads every bit of it. You guys want to know some uncomfortable silence? Sitting with that guy in the Oval Office with no words being spoken. Not one. And then he looks at me, he looks over his glasses at me and he goes, so was that pretty hard to deal with? And I said, well, yes, sir. I mean, I'm still dealing with it. I mean, he said, I can only imagine. I said, yes, sir. And then trying to be humble or trying to be, like, it's not about me. I'm showing you this article. I'm really trying not to be too cocky about it. I was like, yes, it's been very, very, very difficult. He says, and then I said something to the effect of, but sir, I haven't dealt with 9/11. I haven't had to go tell soldiers, families that their sons aren't coming back, daughters aren't coming back because of the Iraq war or whatever. He just looked at me sharp, and he did not miss a bit. He just turned and he goes, I tell you one thing, I haven't ever had to deal with a lightning strike before. And there you go. So he was an amazing man. You can disagree with all the policies and politics you want with him, but that gives you a definite glimpse of some of what he was made of and what he was about. This is the final bit of it, and I'm done. Final little snippet. The USS George Herbert Walker Bush aircraft carrier commissioning in Norfolk, Virginia. And this is the Air Force flying over the formation. Hank, you can go ahead and hit it. Several thousand people on that deal. Yeah, we got some Top Gun fans since we're talking about guy stuff, right? When the guy goes, call the ball, Maverick. And Maverick goes, what did he say? Maverick's got the ball. I got to sit in the chair where the guy goes, call the ball, man. that was a pretty weird experience because I did that. Anyway, Mavericks called the ball. So that's really it, guys. Thank you very much for your time and listening to some of my craziness. And it's been quite a journey. So all of that I just showed you on the video after the footage of my wife's death happened that I wasn't planning on. And when you go through some sort of life event, I mean, I'm very fortunate in a lot of ways but I'd give it all up. You know, I'd give it all up. Every bit of this crap if I could see her just one more time, you know? You know what I mean? So do me a favor tonight if you're married. If you're having a tough time with your wife or your marriage, give her a hug, man, and tell her you love her because I can't. Right? I hope I get married someday and I hope I have some children. But that's all I'd ask of you. And it's like starting over. You know, all of your dreams, all of your goals, all of your desires, having a family, all get erased. So I feel like I'm a 10-year-old in some ways. But man, I'm following Jesus Christ's teachings. That's my decision. I encourage you to ask questions of me or anybody here if you're not sure, if you don't know who this cat is. I am not perfect, and I'm dealing with the crap all day, every day. And I really, really appreciate you letting me share this stories with me. It's very helpful. Thank you.